So, Ayo, welcome to the show.
Thank you very
If we were to go back to the young you, I don't know how far back you want to go, but what were the early experiences that shaped your life as it is today?
right. So if we go far back, I'll say someone that's had a very strong influence in terms of life experience would be my dad. So when we were growing up, he himself was a man of excellence. So he was company secretary for UBA bank at that time, which at the time it was actually a French bank.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Right, yes. So it's only in recent times that the name actually changed to
Right.
United Bank for Africa. And he was the first um, Nigerian that was actually employed as company secretary,
Right.
which at that time was a position of high integrity. So we were kind of shaped with that behavior.
So your dad is a pretty big deal.
Certainly.
Yeah.
It was, and then the other interesting thing is that I actually left Nigeria at the age of 17 and to go study in the US. So I went to University of Maryland at that young age, and it was a cultural shock in terms of life generally, excellence, and so my interaction at a very young age. Oh, I remember in those days. Okay, the university itself was in a very nice part of town and with lovely there was I still remember the artificial lake. So even the university was a great surrounding. It was a great environment. Everything was like sparkling. It was clean. The lecture rooms were amazing.
Yes.
It was all nicely set up. And then the day-to-day living, going to cinema, going to the malls, it was going to restaurants, was all completely different from Nigeria. So that of kind of also exposed me to that sort of life of with excellence and yeah.
Yeah. So did you find yourself coming back to Nigeria eventually wanting to emulate that? Or did you just think, well, that was there and this is here?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I mean, I was away from Nigeria for 17 years.
Wow, it's a long time.
So spent 3.5 years in the US. I went to medical school in Dublin, Ireland. Spent another sort of 6 years and then moved over to England, spent another 6 odd years. I started working in England. Then I came back to Nigeria in 1993. And to me, it was, I was fortunate enough to have worked in some great institutions. And so for me, it was like, we can do this. So when I came back to Nigeria, I joined St. Nicholas Hospital.
I was a patient there
Right. Yeah. So,
after your time.
right, I was there between 1993 and 1996. And after 2 years as a surgeon, I was actually moved to the position of the medical director. So that's when I started getting a stint in administration,
Hmm.
and it was a different experience from just being a clinician. Yeah,
Is that the point at which you thought, okay, this is now about service? Was that the point?
absolutely. Because, when you're just practicing as a professional, you kind of don't see the entire picture. Now, when you're practicing as a medical director and administration, you see the entire picture. So a patient comes in, they they want to be seen right away.
Yes.
So they also they want empathy, compassionate care. So it's not just about the clinical. Uh, they want excellence in every touch point. The thing about most industry settings, including healthcare, but healthcare is slightly different. We have multiple touch points.
Yes.
And the same thing for hospitality. I mean, you come in, you check in, but what's happening to the or the restaurant or the food, so what's happening to your room or what's the restaurant like?
Yes.
How comfortable is it? So there are multiple touch points, and one needs to bear that in mind that you need to ensure that all the touch points are taken care of.
Yeah. And yeah, you mentioned all those things. So I was a patient at your first hospital, St. Nicholas, and I didn't think much of the customer care there. And this was after your time, of course. And now, having been a patient at St. Nicholas, sorry, and now at Evercare, where you are, it's a completely different experience. And so I suppose the difference is the hospital where you were a clinician and the one where you are the director of medical services makes a big difference. And certainly from my experience, it and I guess that's the reason why you were invited to come here is because I wanted you to talk about what I saw at Evercare, which is very much like hospitality experience. You check in, there's a pleasant place to wait. You can go and get something to eat. Yeah, there's maybe some delays here and there, but pretty much sticks to the time. And then the way in which I interact with the staff there is a great deal of empathy and care, and that's made such a difference. And I can't think of any other hospital I would go to now, not because of the level of medical care, but because of that hospitality element. So,
Well,
well, thank you for that on behalf of all of us who've seen that difference.
yes.
Um, but let me just ask, seeing you now, a lot of people will meet you as you are now, and especially your staff. What would you say would be the biggest misconceptions your staff would have about your career, how they see you now, and the journey you've had? What would you say that people, what they think about it versus what it really has been?
Yes. So um, I think if you look at Nigeria, um, you realize we're facing quite a number of challenges. So when you come in into a place like Evercare and you look at the staff, both senior staff and general, there's that kind of expectation of what people expect to see anywhere in the world. Now, if we've done quite a lot of work, one of the things that we find extremely challenging is the attrition and the so-called the Japa syndrome. So
That's people leaving the
leaving,
health and going abroad.
yeah, people leaving and going abroad. Now, that is because of that, we've had to be quite deliberate about training and ensure that we're building a, a system with processes in terms of that delivery of excellence. So, and when people look at what we've managed to achieve today, they don't quite realize all the kind of challenges in the back room. I mean, if you look at even things like power, I mean, and I'm sure you also face the same kind of problem.
Yes.
So, how do you ensure that you're providing 24/7? I mean, in a hospital setting, it's got to be 24/7. So, a lot of assumptions that come into play that, everything is going to be working properly,
Yes.
but it takes quite a lot to actually keep all those things going. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, just winding back to when you started your career, let's just say when you entered medical school and you're on the way to being a doctor, what would that young Io think about who you are today and the job that you do today?
Yeah. So, again, if I go back to when I was much younger, in those days, your parents they want you to you're either gonna they want you to become a doctor, become an engineer, or a lawyer. Those three professions were the big things. So from a very, very young age, um, I kind of, they kind of ask you, oh, what do you want to become when you get older? For some reason, I picked doctor, but the there's one person in the family who actually influenced that selection. I have a cousin older than I am, who actually was a very good doctor at the time. And I used to spend a little bit of time with him.
Yes.
I liked the way he was delivering care. Now, so when I went abroad and then when I actually ended up I kind of imagined myself as one of those sort of top clinician, maybe ending up becoming a professor.
Right, right.
Now, however, when I was in England, my father, oh, he had some illness and I had to come back home, look after him. And also, um, at that time, my girlfriend came back to Nigeria. And so I came back to Nigeria. And when I got back home, I more or less, I was looking at myself and saying, look, just treating people is not enough. I practiced as a kidney transplant surgeon,
Yes.
but to me, I was only just helping a few people. So the transition to the administrative part is got a much bigger impact because you're changing system rather than just treating a few people.
So you didn't see that coming in as a younger.
No, I didn't see that coming at all. I mean, I always saw myself as a doctor for life.
Yes. So what's kept you motivated all these years? Has it been the changes or has it been some dedication to some higher principle? I mean, what has it been?
Yeah, excellent question. So for me, when I turned, I think it was 55, I kind of, just reflecting. And I said to myself, you got to have a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
So what's your sense of purpose? To me, and um, that answer to me was to be part of transforming healthcare in Nigeria. Now, as you're aware, healthcare is in a difficult place in Nigeria.
Yes.
Such a difficult place in terms of access, in terms of quality, in terms of cost, uh, even a coverage, insurance, only 10% of the population insured.
Wow.
So you can have a nasty disease and you're bankrupt. So that there's a lot to do to actually get to the right place. And I enjoy being part of that journey because it's like never finished. There's so much to do. And so it's quite rewarding to be part of that journey.
Mm. Yeah, I can actually see when you say that there's so much to do. I mean, if 10% of the population is probably being served reasonably well, that's a huge chunk still that needs to be satisfied. What would you say in and so much of what you do as a medical professional, you're seeing people sometimes at their worst and then at their lowest. What have you learned most about human psychology, human behavior from all of that?
Yeah. So um, interestingly, when I was in the US, my major was biology and my minor was psychology. It's really interesting. But so now the thing about psychology is in healthcare, if you take healthcare and most other industries, but quite extreme in healthcare, they come to you anxious because they're unwell.
Hmm.
Now, when someone is unwell, you need to connect in a peculiar way to feel their pain. Now, that requires, I mean, naturally, I think I will consider myself as someone who's got empathy, but not everybody has got empathy. And but you need to be able to teach people empathy because you can actually teach people empathy.
Well, that's good, especially in your field.
Yeah. And that's something that is required in order to deliver good service.
Yes.
And even in hospitality, if you don't connect, if you don't put yourself in the shoe of the person on the other side, it's actually difficult to meet their needs and expectation.
Yes. So studying in the US, medical school in Dublin, um, spent some time there. Then you moved to London, um, and eventually made your way back to Nigeria. What is it that's peculiar about the Nigerian or the Lagos environment that shaped you as a professional today?
Yeah, I consider Lagos as a chaotic city. There's just chaos everywhere. It's just behind the scene. There's some degree of, well, what I would call, should we say, organized chaos. So
Yes.
in the middle of all that, it's a vibrant city. It's a relatively rich city
Mm.
compared to the other cities in Nigeria. It's so dynamic. Now that if you look at the service that we offer, like for instance, if I take something like scheduling,
Yes.
um, in healthcare, of course, we give appointments. If you go to a healthcare facility, say in London or anywhere in the US, if you say 2 o'clock and you don't appear at 2 o'clock, there's there's is either you're going to miss that appointment or you're just going to have to wait for. But here, people will tell you, I got stuck in traffic, 2 o'clock becomes 2:15,
Or
and then
2:30.
what, or 2:30, and then what happens to the person who's got, so you need to kind of be able to deal with all that and deal with it in a manner that will not aggravate the customer.
Yeah.
Because, again, in Nigeria, because of the day to day, like in Lagos, the day to day hectic life, people get quite worked up.
Yes.
And when they present in front of you, sometimes the way they talk to you, so they can be aggressive, and we face that all the time.
Yes.
So you need to be able to de-escalate and tone down, tone down the mood. So you need to be able to learn all that um, whilst you're delivering the service.
Yeah. So that's like empathy plus.
Absolutely.
So just moving away from healthcare specifically for a second, how would you define outstanding service for our listeners who run all kinds of different businesses?
Right. So my definition, and picking this carefully, is uh like caring, performing beyond expectation to create excellence. So the key words there, the caring, the beyond expectation, and then the excellence. So if I were to put that together, I think that applies everywhere. So
Every environment.
you're not like if you take let's say the hotel industry, somebody comes, let's say, and then they come and then they tell you, look, oh your check-in time is say 12 noon, but you've come at 9 o'clock and you don't want to wait in the lobby. So you need to be able to deal with that situation and some degree of flexibility.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you also exceed the expectations by saying, okay, I mean, even though, this is at 12 noon, but we're going to find you a room, the room is ready. And then creating that excellence, the experience from all the touch points, the food, so you can apply this in any kind of industry sector. Yeah.
So if you were to talk to an SME owner or manager right now and tell them what are the things that they absolutely have to get right, no matter the industry, in order for them to not just survive, but to really thrive, what would those things would be?
Right. I think number one, you need to take care of your people. I think in any industry sector, what I've come to realize is that, typically people focus on the customer. But I think there's one prerequisite. If you don't focus on your people that face that customer on a day-to-day basis, you're going to run into problems.
Yeah.
Because what you need to do is invest in your people for them to be able to deliver the service to the highest level. And what do I mean by taking care of your people? I I mean, one of the things that we've done for a very long time, almost at the beginning, we provide free transportation to staff.
Yes.
And that's widespread across Lagos. So like 8, 9 areas, they pick staff up. It doesn't matter, and it's comfortable. So
Yeah. I'm thinking that that probably takes away at least half the stress of that
absolutely,
person's daily life
yes,
as a member of your staff.
yes. I mean, if you look at Lagos, moving from A to B
Hmm.
is hellish,
Yes.
and people are waking up at 4 a.m. just to be able to get to work at 8:30 p.m.
Yes.
That's tough. So in terms of productivity, if you wake up at 4 a.m., I think you're going to struggle at work in terms of
Yes.
concentration.
Of
Yeah, but
course.
so we pick people on, we drop them, we also take them back. And that's helped a great deal.
Yes.
And of course, we have all sorts of welfare packages. Do a lot of training. We have hospitals in Lahore and Kenya. We get staff to travel across.
Oh, you have? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
So, and I tell you, some people never traveled until they got to Evercare. I mean, so that's a great experience.
And when they come back with all that experience, and then just think about a time when your team delivered beyond even your expectations. Can you think of a situation where your team did that that you could tell us about?
Yeah, I tell you, one thing that happened recently, we were getting a lot of requests from patients that they were waiting, like waiting time and waiting too long. So we started like on the ground floor seeing both patients that wanted to see specialists and patients that wanted to see general practitioners.
Yes.
So quite, crowded because on a daily basis, we see like about 250 to 300 patients. So now we now felt we needed to create another space for specialists. And we went out, we got architect to look at this, and we got a huge bill.
I've had one of those before.
Right. And interestingly, our staff got together and delivered this project.
Wow.
That was mind blowing. And they put heads together to say, what should the space look like? What should the flow look like? And they put all this together and at a fraction of the cost. And this is now in operations. So that's also to talk about empowering your staff
Yes.
and also allowing them to be creative, innovative in terms of critical thinking. And they put it together, and that's the space is ready, it's in use, and it's working well.
I think that's one thing we have in common. We have a restaurant here called the Afrobeats, which opened in May.
Mm.
And we'd had, huge estimates for architectural services, interior design services, and so on. And in the end, we couldn't afford it. And what we did eventually was, with our internal team, figure it all out. It's that we had a design to follow, and we followed that to the letter. Had some great contractors who worked along with us, and yeah, again, fraction of the cost. So, and it showed us a lot about what people were capable of.
Capable of doing.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So if we look at how those teams come into the hospital, what we see in our industry is a lot of people coming in at the lowest levels, obviously, without any formal industry training.
Mhm.
How do you cope with that? How do you turn that raw talent? Obviously, your clinicians come in from medical school and so on, but your people at lower levels than that who come in, how do you take them, that raw talent, turn them into professionals, especially when they weren't even thinking about staying and making healthcare their career?
Excellent question. So the last thing you said about when you said about staying, so we kind of struggle with this at some point where you say, okay, you train, they leave, you train, they leave.
Hmm.
Now, but one of our board directors said, okay, if you don't train,
And they
they
stay.
destroy the business. They stay and destroy the business. So we don't mind actually providing trained personnel to the rest of the world, whether it's people that are going abroad, whether it's somebody moving from us to another industry sector, because at the end of the day, you're building capacity, you're improving the workforce in Nigeria. So we now, just as a rule, they just train. So I'll give you an example. We've got about 700 odd staff, including outsourced staff. So about sometime a couple of months ago, 5, 6 months ago, we decided we're going to train everybody on empathy, including your security, including porters, and we did it. It cost us a lot of money, but it was transformational.
So given that you might be seeing raw talent at the lowest levels, or you might have clinicians coming in that just have the technical skills, what in the end are the qualities that you look for in each of those people before you hire them?
Yeah. So empathy is a strong one. Obviously, I mean, you're asking questions just around that, and because healthcare is high stress,
Yes.
high energy. So if you don't have emotional intelligence, if you are not a good, uh, if you don't have good PR, if you don't have a good personality, it's it's difficult in healthcare.
Yes.
So those things are quite critical in trying to select the best hires. You don't always get it right, mind you, because sometimes people can perform at interviews, but when they're on ground,
You know about that. Yeah.
so you got to be, but as much as possible, you try to look out for those qualities. And then when they get on ground, of course, you give them a 6 month probation. And if they don't perform to your standard, and then it's kind of time to go. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So if someone watching now looks and listens to you, they might be saying, well, we don't have the money to hire people in Dubai to train our staff. We don't have those kinds of resources. What would you say would be one or two training methods that even a small business could apply?
Okay, good. I mean, y- the well, just to make one quick point is that even in Nigeria, Nigeria is changing actually. I think we're beginning to see a movement where people are paying a lot of attention to training. So in Nigeria, you can get resources that can do training.
Yeah.
But having said that, if you can also, what people don't do well enough is mentoring. So you can have organizations, in every organization, you're going to find some good people.
Yes.
Now, the good people can actually mentor internally without you having to spend extra costs. Obviously, that takes longer,
Yes.
but also it's strong if people are watching the way others relate. I mean, one of the things that I like to do is like when I'm engaging patients' relatives, because in Nigeria, when people come in, they come in with families, and when you're talking to people, there's a way of talking to people. There's a way to even explain in very simple language. I tell you, one of the things that I always do when you're engaging is I always end by saying, "Oh, do you have any other question?" That's a constant. Now, the average doctor doesn't do that because they just, that's the conversation. It, and you'll be amazed at what that does. It leaves, you leave the conversation with that other person feeling that, oh, they got to the end.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
not living with, yeah,
Nothing left on the
nothing
table.
left. Yes.
Interestingly, you talk about mentorship. And when I think about it, and sometimes when I explain to some of my managers about training, I ask them to look at other fields, whether it's football, whether it's track and field, any sport. And I ask them, how often do these people train? Is it quarterly? Is it monthly? Is it weekly? And everyone thinks about it and they go, no, actually, they train daily.
Daily.
And it's only mentoring that can deliver that kind of training. It's constant on the job every day. Yes, you have special sessions, quarterly and monthly, that people can go for. But I think something that any small business can implement is just that constant mentoring, constant correction, constant advice, constant showing people this is how you do it, and allow them to make mistakes.
Very good point. Excellent point.
So if you think about the people who have come through your leadership over the years, give us a story of someone who came from a very basic level, maybe entry level, and has now gone on to, quite a senior role, within your organization or elsewhere, under your leadership?
Yeah. So, um, there's a young man that we employed right at the beginning who was in charge of billing, uh, where he was coming from,
Yes.
just like a billing officer, right? Now, so, but extremely hardworking person. So when he actually joined Evercare, now, as Evercare started a little over 4 years ago. So, like, I've been there from beginning, even pre-operations. So this young man worked very closely with me, and we had to create the entire billing system for the hospital, which was so difficult, requiring a lot of time. So we would work and have meetings, and he worked very, very closely that, like, this guy was, oh, we need to go on break. I said, no, 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 we can't go on break because we had a target. And then, so he grew in that role, working so hard with a lot of sacrifice.
Yes.
And then he continued that culture. Then we moved him up, and now he's actually the revenue cycle manager.
Wow. How many levels above is that from where he
From
was?
where is it? Like about 3, 4.
Yes.
Yes. So, and he's doing really well. Yeah. And then he getting involved with business developments, working with other teams, learning new skills. And I see him moving even higher.
Even higher.
Yeah.
Uh, that this generation, and you've been around for quite a while now. I'm not saying you're old, right? But it's a different generation now that's coming to work,
He sure is.
and many people of our generation look at them and say, they're lazy, they don't really bring much to the table, and they don't work as certainly as hard as we did. But is that how you see it?
Great, great question. Now, so let me tell in our own days, uh, in healthcare, we have what we call on call, which means after your 9 to 5 work hours, there'll be certain days of the week that you will be on call. So if there's a problem, you get called. And we did what is called like 1 in 2. So you only have like 1 day. So every other day you're on call.
Yes.
You can't do that now because nobody will take it. Um, there's a lot of emphasis on work-life balance. And I think there are good things and bad things, or not so good things about the Gen Z or current generation. The good thing is that they want everything now. They're, they're not prepared to wait. That's one. Two, they want it their way. So this is, it's not the way you treat everybody else. This is my way. This is what I want. They demand it and they want it. Now, what that does to any business, it keeps you on your toes
Yes.
because, in Nigeria, we got 60% youth. That's the future. Those are the people you're serving. And you're not going to survive if you don't meet their needs and expectations. The sort of maybe slightly, well, some people may say it's negative, but some people may say not, is the work life balance. They want, they're working, but they want some kind of recreation. If they had a choice, every industry sector should have a gym, should have,
Yes.
sit down, lounge, watch TV in the middle of work. So that's their life. We don't think of it that way. But and funny enough, they actually in some industries, that's how they're going to give you the best in terms of productivity.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, the old rules no longer apply. That's for sure. If I just take you into an area that will apply to everybody listening now, tell us about your approach to things like guest complaints. You know, when patients are not happy with what's happened, how do you deal with it? Is there a way that you think is the best way to deal with? Some people say difficult patients, but you know, these are people in difficult situations, I would say. What's your view?
yeah, this and we get that a lot. I mean, in healthcare, healthcare is one of the you may or may not know this is one of the most complex industry sectors.
I can believe it.
Yeah. We compare with aviation, nuclear power plant, chemical industry because we have too many touch points. So, and if you can imagine it, you want all the touch, everybody to deliver to the same best standard. So we get a lot of different issues. The first thing is that you need to deal with it like ASAP. You know, the error sometimes people make is okay, oh, they listen to this complaint, oh, we'll call the manager, or, we'll call you tomorrow. There's no in health, and that applies for most industry sectors too. You've got to deal with it at that point. Don't leave it. Even so, what people like is that you take this as critical, it's important, and then they feel relevant. So that is one. And two is that you need to, you see, there's a way to handle problems. You need to change, they even need to see it in your body language. And then you need to kind of change the mood to like a calm kind of setting. So if they're standing, you need to take them from that standing. You need to get them to sit down in a quiet place. You're not doing it in front of everybody else. Because those sort of things are things that kind of addresses the situation. Yeah.
And I think anyone can learn from that because often people deal with complaints and it's right at the reception desk or on the shop floor or something like that.
Yep.
And being able to diffuse it partly relies on interrupting that pattern, moving them maybe to the back of somewhere or somewhere to sit,
Yeah.
changing the body language and all of that.
All right.
And those are all useful for, I think, anybody in any situation. Tell me a little bit about, though, how I've seen a lot of things online recently where people go to hospitals. Sometimes it's a critical situation, and the first thing the hospital staff is asking, it might be at the front desk or whatever, it's payment. And some of the cases are quite sad because people die because someone says, "Well, no pay, no play." Tell me, what's your experience and what's your view?
Yes. So when we started the hospital in Lekki, there's sort of construction, all that. So we were getting like make, and then, because it's also Lekki Express. So we're getting road traffic accidents coming in. We're getting people falling off scaffolding. And because we have a policy, and that policy is treat first in the emergency.
Of course.
Obviously, in non-emergency, there's time to talk about the money.
Yes.
We were struggling because we were getting too many of those cases, and maybe the word got out.
Hmm.
So now, again, we have a policy which is if it's emergency, but what we now do is life threatening, you just move on with it in the emergency. And then if people are not able to pay, we end up transferring elsewhere.
Right.
But we stabilize, make sure that at least in terms of making sure you resuscitate and they're not dying. And then we then move them and transfer them to a place. Obviously, we get cases where people are not able to pay, and that's lost income. Yeah,
Yes.
and we write that off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult,
Yes.
but
But what's the toughest situation of that type that you've dealt with? And what has it taught you? So maybe not necessarily with money or anything like that, but tell me about a tough situation, an emergency, some kind of a guest situation, and you had to deal with it, um, and you learned a lot from it. What was that thing?
well, in terms of so, like I said at the beginning, we, I mean, we got some nasty injuries that we had to kind of treat almost like end to end without getting paid. So the lesson from that is we get to a point of save the life and then refer.
Yes.
So like we get people in a intensive care unit, for instance, which is very, very expensive. And then you ask for a deposit, they come into the unit, and then after X number of days, they're not able to pay. So in terms of lesson, one thing we're working on right now is to have some kind of CSR pot
Yes.
but we're still discussing that with some corporate organizations to see can we put something aside for those kind of cases.
Yes.
So that's still work in progress.
So you're still learning
Yes, we're
about
still
that.
learning about that. So it's still quite challenging.
Quite a compassionate approach, though. I mean, it's certainly very different to the things I've been seeing online. Okay, so would we accept that you treat first, that's your policy, money after, but let's talk about the money now. In your own operations, and this is something I want the listeners to be able to learn from. What's that link between service quality and revenue growth?
Yeah. So pretty much for me, it's all about quality. So you see, in Nigeria, you sometimes have people that want to play the competition game by maybe reducing pricing,
Yes.
but those things are not sustainable. Now, what is sustainable is to keep working constantly on improving the quality of care. Now, what that does is that you will build loyalty. Now, in the sense that there will be repeat business. So if you serve people well, they will come back, they will refer word of mouth, which is still a very, very strong marketing. Uh, then you also build trust. You see, because in Nigeria, a lot of people have lost trust in the healthcare industry, and you get medical tourism. $1 billion spent on medical tourism, but some things are beginning to happen to regain that trust. Again, it's all to do with quality. So if you keep working on quality and excellence, then that turns into revenue.
Yes.
Sometimes people, people kind of find it difficult to understand that because they think, and the thing about quality as well, if a patient comes into a hospital, pretty much there are three key things that they watch out for. Clinical excellence is one, so they want to come in, they want to leave, everything is sorted. They also like a nice ambience, they like the aesthetics, they watch out for that. And then, of course, the compassion, the empathy, that care, the hospitality, the food. You'd be amazed at how much people want in terms of good food. I mean, they come into hospital, but they want good food. So there's a lot that you need to keep working on. But for me, that's what turns into the revenue generation. That's the like,
There's something that you said which really touched me there, and I think a lot of our listeners could learn from. And that is sometimes you see competition, which is the people next to you, the people you know. So in your case, it would be other hospitals, and other people will see people around them. And what people don't often realize is that when you raise that service quality, like you mentioned, is that you pull in customers from almost unseen competitors. So in your case, it's medical tourism. It's all the hospitals that people would normally go to in the US, in the UK, in India, and other places who now come to Evercare. I'm one of those people. Normally people would say, Michael, you have a British passport, you could just go to London.
mm,
You could go home to Jamaica, where you're from. One of our earlier guests actually would something he didn't mention on the program, but I know about him because he's a good friend of mine, is he had treatment again with Evercare. And when he eventually went back to his hospital in Europe, and they said, well, let's check you out, found everything was okay. And then his doctor was able to say to him, well, I think I could tell you exactly what they did. And literally step by step, said
mm.
exactly what was done
So,
in a hospital here in Nigeria. And it's interesting when you think about it like that, where you raise the quality, you start to pull people in from areas that you didn't see naturally as your competitors. And of course, people might be spending a lot of money on those services, but they would have spent even more on travel to get
correct.
to those services.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a great example to learn from.
Mm.
But still, many of our viewers, our listeners will be looking at this and going, yeah, but, big hospital, you've got all these resources. Meanwhile, in my business, things are very tight. Margins are very tight. And I think the things that I want to cut, can they cut and still maintain service excellence?
You're talking about cost cutting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, you can. I'll tell you, like, I think for instance, well, I think we could cut energy costs, right? We're appealing to government. I hope they listen to us because I mean, we've got to have power 24/7. And I'm sure you've heard about this band A band. I mean, and energy costs just kind of went through the roof. Now, we're talking government would they need to intervene for hospital, which is about saving lives. They
So,
can put us on band.
sure. But you're saying if you can find a way to reduce your cost without reducing the quality, because you're not going to cut the power, you're
Yeah,
just going to cut the cost of the power.
yeah.
So, what would
But
you say then what would the things be that a business, a small business, a service business should never cut in order to save costs if they're going to keep quality up?
well, I think one of the key things you don't want to interfere with is if you again I go to people um like cutting salaries, for instance. I think that would be quite damaging.
Especially in a low wage economy like the one we're in.
Correct. Um, Rather, I think one should be looking at even ways to actually increase costs because of like the people in terms of salaries. because in Nigeria, if you compare to other markets, it's still a low
The lower wage economy, yeah.
economy. Now, the things that you need to provide that excellence. If I take healthcare, for instance, we use a lot of consumables. Um, eh, sometimes people want to say, let me cut costs of. You can't do that because that will impact the quality of what you're trying to deliver. So, again, if you look at uh, any kind of industry sector, the aesthetics, the environment, the maintenance, you can't start.
Cut those
You
items.
can't call, also so if just looking at the variables that will allow you to deliver that supreme care or service, you're not going to be able to fiddle around much with that.
Right,
But in terms of efficiencies, in terms of process engineering, I mean, there are ways, innovative ways of to cut those without impacting the quality.
right. So if we turn that around and then say, okay, if you're not really going to be cutting, should you, I mean, what are some maybe inexpensive things that business owners could do that might improve the quality greatly without sending budgets off?
Mm. I think a lot of it is got to do with innovation and creative thinking. So, if you look, like one of the things we're looking at right now is if we have a lot of like billing executives, right? And different points of billing. Now, we are working on technology which should not cost higher than current way we provide it, where people can come in and they just paying at the spot
Right.
without all these billing executives. That's just one example.
So using technology
Using
to
technology,
create more convenience
correct.
without, sending the costs up in terms of budget. Or maybe even
So
cutting some costs because you might need less people to implement that thing.
yes, you get less, and so and we're having to we've been like just creative thinking of how you can do this in a manner that is not going to actually increase your costs.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, and this is something I ask each guest. Could you give us three pillars for designing a revenue strategy and that anyone could build into their business? And that's based around service excellence. What would be three things that you say, three pillars that if you do this, this, and this, you can certainly build your revenue? It's a great way of building revenue.
Right. Now, I think customer loyalty would be number one. Um, and, in a lot of industry sectors, some people are doing loyalty reasonably well. Now, if you take, I'm sure you've heard of Med Plus, right?
Yes,
Now,
that's
they
the
never,
pharmacy.
pharmacy, yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't have that before, but in recent times, and each time you go in there, they're asking you, oh, where's your card? So there's a card that they give you.
Oh, so you get points.
You get
Yeah.
points.
Okay, great.
And it's funny. I mean, since I've been using them forever, and it's like fortunately now they're everywhere. That's my go-to. I don't even bother. So if something is not available, I will go to the other branch
Right.
and the points just keep and you get discount. So that's one.
So loyalty. Okay.
Yeah. Two is trust. Now, there are different ways of building trust in people. Um, But every industry sector should always find a way to say, every time I go to this for this service, I trust them so much that it's always going to be the same.
Right. So that's that. So that trust then is built on consistency.
Yes, and
Right.
doing it right all of the time, every time, without fail.
Okay. And in your case, that could be life or death.
Yeah,
You-
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay. So loyalty and trust,
yeah,
and that trust is built on consistency.
yeah.
And your third,
Now,
or should I take or
the
should I take
third,
consistency as the
no,
third?
no, no. The
Okay.
third for me would be value.
Value. Okay.
Yeah. Now, when you say value, let me take my value to me is being able to give that quality at the lowest price. That's what I call value. So
Right.
if people look at what I'm paying and they ask themselves, did I, is that, am I getting value? So even if you're going to, let's say now in industry, you're going to charge me like maybe other hospitals may say consultation fee 20,000, and then you're coming here and you're asking, okay, 50,000. The question, so I'm not bothered about the 50. What I'm bothered about is there any value in this? So if you give that value where they feel that what they've gotten is worth that price,
Yes.
people will pay, they will pay it.
Right.
So that's those from, I mean, those three things that I mentioned, I think they're quite vital.
So loyalty,
Safety,
trust,
and value.
and value. I think those are three great ones. And I think they're slightly different to what we've had before.
Right.
So let's get into a bit of a vulnerable space for you for a minute,
Sure.
and don't answer in a way that might expose you to any malpractice suits. But what's a mistake that you've made that you learn from that fundamentally changed the way you operate now as a professional or as an organization?
Yeah, for me, so, like I've been in administration for quite some time, so if you talk about mistake, then, I mean, like previous, now, I will put it down to, I'm a bit of a micromanager. And where you micromanage, which, when the hospital started, it was something that, and even to some degree, I still criticize myself now, um, of, too much like micromanaging. I think if you micromanage, you stifle growth. Um, you don't encourage innovation and creativity in people. But, for me, I get this maybe because of our industry sector. I'm always concerned about um, errors.
Of course.
So I'm like breathing down people's necks to say, look, you need to do this, this, this. But, in most industry sectors, there's a saying that you kind of need to allow people to fail so that they can learn and not fail
Yes.
later. But in our sector,
Kind of dangerous. Kind
it is. So there's got to be a kind of a balance.
And so coming to the end of this conversation, what's a legacy that you hope to leave behind after your time in the industry? When your career is done and you're retired and you look back, what do you think you want people to say about you and what you left behind?
Yeah, that is quite a straightforward one. Is to have been counted as part of the people that contributed to transformation of healthcare in Nigeria, because it's still it's moving, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and
Yes.
it's getting closer and closer. Just to be counted as part of the contributors
Yes.
to that transformation.
Final thought. Serve and grow. Name of this podcast. What does that mean to you?
Um, it's not over till it's over. In that there's always room for getting to the next level, the highest level. So it's not, it's never over. You need to continue till eternity.
Yeah, just keep striving.
Just keep striving. Yeah, it's never over. I don't consider any state to say, "Oh, we've done it." No, it's there's no such thing.
Yeah, yeah. Great advice. And thank you so much. I think everyone would have learned a lot from your journey, and anyone, and I suppose everyone listening would have had some interaction, involvement with the healthcare industry. And I think they would have found your approach refreshing. So from all of us who are now receiving better healthcare, just thank you. Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you. It's been a very interesting and enjoyable conversation.
Great. Thank you.